start streaming. Is it going to work? Excellent connection. Let's see if we can see some chat. Here we go. It's going to work. It is going to work. All right. I think so. All right. I wasn't planning to do a stream today, but then I saw this phone and it just had such an interesting note. Why not? Let's give it a try. I haven't done a stream for a while. So here's the note. This one is got the check mark on the permission to video record the repair for you guys for YouTube. So let's do this live. This is an iPhone 11 Pro that is coming from a guy in California named Jermel. And he starts out by telling us a crazy story. He says that he was riding his bike and he was hit by a car. That is one of my greatest fears. I ride my bike to work now and then, and I'm terrified the whole time that I'm gonna get hit by a car, so I'm okay, thank goodness. I mean, that's really scary. I believe my phone might have taken a part of the impact because the phone was in my pocket immediately after the accident. I pulled the phone out of my pocket and found a black undamaged screen. So it sounds like he got hit by a car and then the phone didn't crack, but it didn't turn on. The phone wouldn't turn on about 60 seconds after the phone began to heat up. It got warm, but not hot. And at that time, I tried to turn it on again, and it was unresponsive. So we went to the local shop. They tested the battery, nothing. They sent it to a well-known data recovery company that I'm not going to throw under the bus because everybody makes mistakes. However, I want for you guys, if you have a phone that needs recovery, maybe you've sent it somewhere and we're told it's not recoverable. Maybe we told you it was not recoverable. Try somebody else. There's a lot of people out there doing data recovery, and you may find some of the best, most dedicated minds in iPhone data recovery are your smaller shops. The big guys tend to miss the more relevant recent stuff that maybe isn't popularized on YouTube videos. So just think about getting a second opinion because everybody makes mistakes. All right, so, but these guys are really well known. These guys are going to be like some of those top hits. They pay for a lot of ads. They're getting a lot of traffic on this stuff. So if you send it to a major data recovery player and they tell you it's not recoverable, that doesn't mean that that is absolutely true. It's probably true, but it's not always true, so you might want to get a second opinion. So they said they could not recover the data because they couldn't turn it on. Again, the phone is physically undamaged. However, there might be some minor motherboard damage. Please help. All right, so let's take a look. So here's the phone. Here's how you know that it did go to a quality data recovery place. These guys actually put all the screws back in. So there you go. This is not just a fly-by-night place that you're like, oh, I can't fix it, forget it, here you go, and sends it back in a pile of pieces. So, you know, that's sort of one tip-off that maybe it got a better look than most. Now, without taking this board out, let's go ahead and see if we can see any signs. Did anybody actually do micro-soldering on the board? If not, then you can come into us for standard data. But if you did have a prior micro-soldering attempt, then it has to come in as the more expensive specialty data, and nobody wants that. All right, so let's click over to the microscope view. So we'll get rid of hand cam. And under the microscope, let's see what is going on. So we can see, well, this one makes me a little bit nervous. Maybe this one's not going to be easy. So this is melted, this little plastic, which is fine, but it just means somebody's put hot air here, which may be because they've split the board, in which case I don't know what it's going to look like on the other side because I didn't take this board out. I just noticed a common oversight and kind of hope for the best. Is there a crack in the NAND? If the NAND itself is cracked, then that's definitely a deal breaker, and we can stop right now. So let's kind of investigate that. And I saw one just maybe 3 days ago that the NAND was cracked in 3 pieces. Ain't nobody getting no data from a NAND cracked in 3 pieces. That looks like it might just be a mark, kind of a pencil mark, so we're going to let that slide. Now we can see, yes, somebody's been here before us. There is some prior microsoldering here on the board. And look, people are here on chat. All right, it's Tim. Hi, Tim, how are you? Tim had a very similar iPhone. He only had to fix one iPhone while he was here teaching our MacBook course, which, by the way, I did list our new courses, including our next MacBook course, which is going to be this May. So there's only 8 spots. 1 is already filled. So if you want to do MacBook training here at iPad Rehab with Tim, then you better book one of those spots right now, because we're only doing it this one time. Maybe once a year, maybe twice a year. We'll see how it goes. This may be your last chance. And then all of the other iPhone courses for the year are listed as well. So not for the year, for for spring and stuff like that. So go check it out. I know there were hundreds of people that were emailing me, you don't have any more courses, you don't have any more courses. So I figured out all those dates and listed those. So if you can go and check those out at iPadRehab.com. iPadRehab.com, click the training tab and you can see what's going on. All right, so back to this case. So I'm mentioning this because Tim worked on a phone while he was here and it had a really similar problem. Maybe this has more going on, but we'll see if Tim remembers what was going on with that phone. All right, so we have some prior microsoldering. I can see there's a missing component right here, and we can see some dug up areas. Somebody has been probing around here. So presumably they were probing this row of capacitors, wondering if there was a short circuit. So let's use the yield multimeter to find out whether or not there is a short on that line. So let's find out. One side is ground and the other side is 0.457. So that line is not short. Maybe it was short and they removed a capacitor and therefore it's no longer short if that capacitor was the reason that line was short. So maybe they actually fixed something there, I'm not sure. But there is no detectable short still remaining down in this area that the well-known data recovery company, which shall not be named, was working. All right, so let's look around. Nothing else. We can't really see very much going on this board. Let's go ahead and take up these connectors and see if we can see anything else. I don't see anything else. From experience, though, I'm going to guess that if these well-known companies, they're not usually total trash. So that you can usually kind of figure out, why were you here? What were you thinking? And I betcha that there likely was a short near this NAND area, because you can see that like kind of mark, and yeah, so they probably had a short there that they cleared and then didn't know what to do after that. For fun, let's look up and see what line that is. So let's look that up on lovely ZXW. So they knocked off this guy here, I think. Yeah, so they kind of believe that they had a short on PP0V9 NAND. Now, a short on that line would show up as a phone that has no problem until you ask it to boot, and then it would have really high current consumption. That would be pretty easy to find, because that's the classic way that short circuits in iPhones behave. So it's not surprising that somebody would find that. I don't think that they would just knock off dudes for any other reason, but who knows. All right, so now it's up to us to see what is the behavior on DC power. So that's our next step. So we're going to see if we can be lucky enough to see here on YouTube DC power. Will it work? All right, so this is kind of hit or miss here with the little series of things that all have to work together so that you can see what my DC power says. All right, so we've got battery voltage 3.99 volts, and we're going to plug this in at the battery connector using the lovely squid, right? Squid available at iPadRehab.store. And so far, so good. So if we had a main power rail short circuit, we'd see it already on DC power, and we don't. So next step is prompt this sucker to boot. So I'm going to prompt it to boot with a USB input. So I'm going to plug in USB right down here, plug in USB, and see what does DC power do. And it looks like it's kind of flashing. 0.3, 0, nothing. Let's see, let's unplug. 0.5, 0.6, 0, back to 0. So it's going chug, chug. You know, this sounds like exactly what it is. This is like a car that has a problem with the starter, right? This is a starter problem, right? It won't turn over, right? Something's going on between the key and the engine, the starter. So what is the starter in an iPhone? If this was a MacBook, the starter is the PP3B4 2 voltage that has to appear before you get your main PP bus. And in iPhones, especially these more recent iPhones, there is a starter voltage as well. There's a couple of them. And Tim, I know, saw one when he was working on his iPhone XS when he was here. But regardless, on this one, I'm going to just check around to see how are my brainstem, the lines that have to be there to just provide those basic instructions. Hey, jumpstart the big engine. So what would those be? And I'm going to start with one that is common around the NAND itself, because I think that from the history, the bike accident, getting hot, the fact that somebody probably found a short circuit around the NAND on a traditional line, I'm going to see, are there any jump starter lines around the NAND itself? And there are, and I will tell you which one is catching my attention. So let's go back to ZXW and see. All right, here we are, ZXW. So let's look around for things that would be kind of brainstem, jump-startery stuff that has to happen before we can even ask that power management chip to get busy. And looking around the NAND, let's go over here. Here we go, ding, PP1B8_IO. This is your jump starter line in your iPhone 11 Pro. It's one of several, but this is a big one. You've got to have PP1B8 in order to do anything else. So let's think of it as sort of a jump starter. Is it short? I don't know. We're going to find out. Let's get the multimeter out. Let's see. What are you guys talking about? Was the NAND cracked on that phone that I worked on? No, it wasn't. Can you count to 5? What? I have a question. I have an iPhone 4 and a bunch of stuff about it. An iPhone 4. Tony Tone! $5 from Tony Tone. Thanks, Tony Tone. Awesome. Glad to see that you're still around. And I'm sitting here on my Tony Tone sent me awesome wheels for my chair that I totally love. The rollerblade wheels, which are a huge fave. So if you have a chair, you should also swap out those office chair wheels for fun rollerblade wheels, and you will not regret it. All right, let's go on a hunt now, and let's see. Now, this is a little bit weird to kind of get our bearings here. So we're going to look at that 1B8IO line, and it is at the corner of the NAND that's kind of pointing to this long string of dudes, right? So let's see if we can actually hunt that down on the microscope. So let's get rid of this. Okay, so where is that? It's going to be over here, you know, kind of where these guys were. But we can see that they did not ever probe 1B8IO, right? You guys can see the long line of guys, and these are all buried under that silicone waterproofing. So let's just see if we happen to guess it. Is 1B8IO actually short? All right, one side is 0 to ground, and the other side 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Now, just because something measures low resistance to ground doesn't mean it's short. But in this case, this line normally has much more resistance to ground than 0, 0, 0, 0. So PP1V8IO is short, and that explains our DC power behavior, why this phone is just gets that main power rail. When you ask it to turn on, it just instantly gives up. It just can't get past that starter. Okay, so why is PP1V8IO short to ground? Well, we don't know, but it probably has something to do, hopefully not with some massive prior repair damage on the bottom of this board that I haven't even taken out, which could be, but hopefully it's still something fairly classic, like a single capacitor that feels like being a wire. So we are going to look for, is there a failed capacitor that failed to make a thin wire? And that thin wire is going to have high resistance. So if we add electricity to the system and ask it to go through a thin wire, it'll show as heat under our thermal camera. So let's give that a try. And we're going to slide over. Hopefully this will work. Also very hit or miss on the thermal camera, but let's find out. What did they miss? And I really don't want this to be kind of a throw anybody under the bus kind of stream. I've done that a lot, and there are some places that I really want to throw under the bus. But everybody is allowed to miss something, just overlook something. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to get everything right all of the time. And that's really my message here, is that you should, spread it around. Give other people a chance. Don't just assume that what you hear from the Apple Store, no, you have no options. That's rarely true. And then don't, look around a little bit. Here we go, thermal camera. All right, thermal camera. So this is just the sensor of the thermal camera reflecting back to itself. So nothing exciting going on here. All right, so there's our NAND. Now I haven't applied electricity to this board yet, so it's just sitting here. You can see that my finger is far hotter than anything on the board. Nothing's hot on the board. We're just seeing that reflection of the sensor on the surface of the board. Now we are going to apply electricity, right? So I've got where's my finger? Oh, there we go. So right there, I've connected my DC power, and right now, everything is copacetic and cool because I haven't asked the phone to boot. So how do I get it to boot? I'm going to plug in that USB power source, and I'll show you guys. We'll be able to see that same DC power. Let's move that over. Let's see. Let's do live on the live stream. All right, so you guys can see what's going to happen here to DC power at the same time as our thermal camera. Do we see anything? All right, let's find out. All right, I'm going to prompt it to boot, prompt to boot. And now we have to look around and see. Aha! Aha! I see some heat. I see a hot spot. Now down here, with my little tweezer. See the tweezer? See my finger? Yeah, down here where my finger is, down there, that is where we just probed that PP1V8IO line. So we know PP1V8IO is short to ground, but we don't know where. So now when we're asking, hey, is there anything on this board that's making an inappropriate thin wire with high resistance? It's going to show up as heat. So we clearly see a hot spot, and here's our NAND. It's right on the opposite corner of the NAND. It's on the corner away from where the well-known data recovery company was working. All right, so let's go see whether or not that spot happens to be on our known short line PP1V8IO. So we're going to disconnect power. So I've taken off the squid. Now it's going to start to cool down. So we have to find this spot. So let's go back to the microscope. Let's get rid of our thermal and see if we can locate that exact spot under the microscope. All right, so it's away from where we measured here, where the little guys were, and this is where the prior repair stuff was done. And our hot spot was way over here on the opposite corner. Now, let's go back to ZXW and ask whether or not there's anything there in that corner that has anything to do with our short line. So let's check it out. So we measured here. Now we're looking completely catty corner. You guys say catty corner or kitty corner? I grew up in Maryland, where we are a catty corner country, out in catty corner country on the eastern shore of Maryland. And there we go, C2630. C2630 is a capacitor that is indeed on PP1V8IO, and that guy is likely the spot that is getting hot. So let's take it off, right? Let's remove that, assuming that it is a wire. We're going to rule that out and see if we can unshort PP1V8IO. Maybe this board is going to have bigger fish to fry, but this is what the well-known data recovery company missed. And that is perfectly fine. Everybody makes mistakes, but we're going to see if we can correct that now. And then we will see where we're going with this. Let's get rid of the clutter here. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about this guy well over here. He looks perfectly fine, but when you get hit by a bike, capacitors tend to do things like just turn into wires. So let's remove this little bit of covering, coating, or whatever you want to call it. And let's really give him a look. Yeah, this guy, to my eyes, he has a little bit of a dullness on the right side here, and that tells me that he's likely damaged. So therefore, the safest way that I can remove this wire from the board, this inappropriate wire, is to just go like that and use the iPad Rehab short killer right here. The iPad Rehab famous short killer. All right, now let's find out if removing that wire to ground, did that cure our short circuit? So rather than measure our short circuit up there, why don't we go back to the original spot where we originally measured it and see what the measurement is now. So let's find out. So we're going to take our multimeter back up to this guy and find out. And we have 0.267 in diode mode to ground. So we were zero diode mode to ground, which means the line was touching ground, but not here. It was touching ground through that capacitor that we just removed. So that sounds pretty good, right? Hello, chat, says Federicus Maximus. All right. So it's even flashing. Yes, it is. All right. Now, maybe that's the only thing. Wouldn't that be something if the well-known data recovery company, who shall not be named, just needed to use the iPad Rehab short killer available at iPad Rehab and any Walgreens? You know, this is just an X-Acto knife. Just needed to know where to flick a dude off. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? Maybe that's what's going on. Let's find out. We are going to go back to the hand cam, if I can figure out how to do that. What happened to my hand cam? Hand cam, there you are. Hey, buddy. All right, so we'll move this out of the way. So here's our board. Let's see. Let's actually do this the classic way. Let's see what happens now when we go to DC power and just see if we have gotten back to a little bit more of a normal looking current consumption. Let's find out. Oh no, I'm gonna have to get out the old glasses. I found out this week by asking around. Here's my question. Can you just get LASIK and then don't have to have these annoying things anymore? That'd be awesome. I'd love to do that. Answer is no, but you can get a cadaveric lens transplant, which just sounds pretty gross. I don't know. All right, now I'm going to Prompt to boot. So have any of you had a cadaveric lens transplant so that you don't have to wear reading glasses? Is it worth it? I don't know. All right, so we're going to prompt to boot and see what happens. Prompt, prompt, prompt to boot. Oh, look at that. That is looking like, is it just hanging out there? Let's see. What's it going to do? I don't know. Hanging out, hanging out, hanging out, hanging out, thinking about maybe booting. That's progress. So what I'm going to do is say, all right, that might be okay. I'm not sure. I'm going to get a screen and I'm going to see whether or not this guy can try to make an Apple logo. Maybe he's got some sort of a software problem. Now, iPhone 11 Pro has a lot of sensors in a lot of different places. So we are going to plug in a bunch of this stuff so that we aren't waiting on some sensor that may or may not be listening. All right, now let's go ahead and plug in the yield known good screen and see what happens. All right, did she say cadaveric or catalytic? I said cadaveric, like cadaver, like dead guy, like, hey, dead bro, can I borrow your lens? Can I just take it out of your eye and stick it in my eye? Dead guy's lens. I mean, it is pretty close to Halloween, right? Okay, now let's see, just out of pure curiosity, let's see what happens if we just connect its own native battery now. Let's see what happens. Can it make an Apple logo? Now, sometimes DC power will do weird things and phones are, you know, okay. Ooh, I see an Apple logo! When you put them back on their native battery, and they can sometimes boot up, where on DC power, if they look like they want to boot, then if it's a newer phone, then I kind of let them have a battery and say, can you actually boot? This one is either going to boot, or, and this is a big or it's just going to hang on this Apple logo forever, because the NAND, which is right there, that NAND could have been injured in some way or corrupted. Just like if you took a hard drive and you yanked the power out of the wall, that might corrupt the data. So this is either going to boot up or it's going to have corrupted data. But it certainly didn't make an Apple logo before. So at this point, we're going to see. Oh, look at that. It's my favorite. It booted up. Yay! 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 Look at that. It looks like it's true that the well-known, expensive data recovery company that is recommended at any Apple store. So these are the guys, and there's more than one. These are the guys that if you go to Apple, they're going to be giving you these guys' card. If you Google data recovery, these guys are going to be up at the top, right? So everybody makes mistakes. These guys, probably solved some, one problem, and they just had not seen a 1v8IO short before and did not realize that it has this weird presentation, right? You kind of have to, you learn that, right? Nobody's teaching anybody anything. Nobody's got a secret manual. You have to learn it by figuring stuff out. So I don't fault anybody for not recognizing this. This is a weird presentation. So it's not their fault. But I want you guys to know that overall message that if somebody says that you cannot recover the data because you can't make this phone turn on, even if that's me, I will make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So go get a second opinion on your data. So there you go. What did they miss? They missed a single cap that could have been flicked off by any 5-year-old in kindergarten, as long as you knew which one it was. And that's all for today. I will see you guys next time.